Hey everyone, let me tell you about The Girl With No Reflection by Chow. Now this was a total cover buy for me, and I mean this literally. I saw the book in a bookstore while I was traveling in London and I immediately fell in love with the cover. Unfortunately, it was a big heavy hardback and I was traveling. I didn't have any more luggage space to carry it around with me. So I went looking for the audiobook and I have no regrets, as Syndicate does a wonderful job narrating the book. Now, what is this about? The Girl With No Reflection is a fantasy book inspired by Imperial China. So we start off with an arranged marriage. Our main female character is our narrator also, or we mostly see everything from her perspective. And she has been married off, or is about to be married off, to the emperor's son, so the prince. And things are not going so well. Apparently the prince has been ignoring her a lot and has been shutting her off, and she's really unhappy and doesn't like him. But then her reflection starts talking to her, and that's where the fun part starts. The princess, or the soon-to-be princess, finds out that there is another world behind the mirrors, the mirror world, where people live and they are forced to pretend they are their reflections. So in this book we have our world and the mirror world, where a completely different, we don't really know what kind of species that is, but they're definitely shapeshifters because they can turn into us and then they reflect everything we do. And as the princess finds this out, because the reflection says, do you remember when we were 5 years old and you fell into this pond and we almost drowned? Well, you were saved, but I wasn't, so I'm still healing. I need to spend some time in the real world, in the sun, to gain strength. And that's our first introduction to our main character being a little bit naive and trusting. So she's like, okay, why not? I don't really like the prince. And the reflection her tells her, we have a prince here, he's much nicer than your prince. So they switch, she meets the mirror prince and her reflection marries the real prince. But that's not the end of the story, it's just the beginning. And things happen. And I don't really want to go any more into detail about the story, what happens, because a lot of things unfold. Things go back and forth, so you don't know what's happened, you don't know who to trust, you don't know what's real, what's not, who are the good people, who are the bad people, and I enjoyed this so immensely. Like I said, I went into this mostly blind. I knew it was about an arranged marriage, but that was it. And what I enjoyed in the first third of the book, that I really didn't know who to trust. I had my ideas, who's lying and who's not trustworthy, and who are the bad guys and who are the good guys and what's happening, but I wasn't sure. And that was an interesting experience to listen to. Also, the main character, the main female character, as I said, is a little bit naive. She actually is quite stupid, impulsive, and she does learn throughout the book, which I like, but at some points I always was like, ugh, why do you trust these people but not those people? It's rather strange who she decides to trust immediately and where she's careful with her trust. And that unfortunately doesn't change throughout the book. It's one of her most annoying parts, but since in the beginning the question of trust for the reader is so interesting that we are also not sure whom to trust, that it doesn't really feel like she's doing it on purpose. It only shows later where she obviously is too trusting too fast to people where you're like, why do you do that? Also, the story changes when we finally know who the good people are and who the bad people are, and there are things happening and evolving. And we learn more about the world, the relationship between the prince and the princess, the arranged marriage, and also all the things happening with the mirror world and our world and the history behind that. I really enjoyed that. Another part is that, like I said, our main female character, she grows, she gets less stupid, less impulsive. She's still naive, don't get me wrong. Her trust issues are rather strange. I think she overcomes them a little bit later in the story, but then we already know who to trust, so not sure if that really says something about future trust issues. But the relationship between the characters is also really engaging and fun to see. And it's all connected to the trust and the mistrust and the miscommunication and things that were instigated, all containing to more of the spoiler part of the story that I honestly encourage you not to find out too much about in advance, because for me that was a huge part of the enjoyment. I also really enjoyed how we could see the lack of agency and lack of power for women in this society, mostly represented by the Empress, but also by the decisions and independence that our main female character could have as just being the soon-to-be princess and then princess, because the marriage of course happens, it's the beginning of the story, but it's like she has to do what everybody tells her. Nobody really, even though she's the princess, she doesn't really have any power that comes with that, mostly. And it's very well done. I really enjoyed that part of the book as well, aside from all the fun action-packed scenes that happen later. So, what I'm trying to tell you is get onto this book. I really enjoyed the audiobook. I can only imagine how much fun it is to read it. And the beautiful cover is no disappointment. So let me know in comments. Have you heard about the book? Were you curious about the book? Have you read the book? What did you think? Tell me in comments. We need to talk about this. I don't know anyone who has read the book. Thank you all for watching. Let's talk in comments. Bye-bye.